Perfect. Thank you so much. So, good afternoon, everyone. Have a pretty good turnout today. I'm Casey O'Brien, and I serve as the Assistant Vice Chancellor for Student Success and Transformational Initiatives here at SUNY System, and would like to welcome you to another session in our Transformation Fund Community of Practice series. One of the dimensions of the Transformation Fund is to provide a space for campuses to share best practices for how they're using their transformation funding. And in this particular session, we're going to be talking about essential student supports. And we're thrilled to have the opportunity to hear from some terrific speakers who are going to share how their transformation funding helped advance student supports to our most at-promise students. So I'll introduce our speakers in just a second, but first want to thank Jen Snyder and Lisa Raposo from SUNY CPD, as well as Julia Lang from our office for their help organizing this series. And most especially to our speakers today from the campuses, who I will introduce in just a moment. So we have two presentations for you today. Feel free to drop any questions in the chat, which we'll monitor as we go, but we will have time at the end for Q&A as well. So without further ado, our first speaker is from Herkimer College. Herkimer used a portion of their transformation funding to create a customized onboarding experience for students returning to college called Refresh and Restart. And I'm pleased to introduce Katie Scanlon, who is the director of the Advisement Center at Herkimer College. So Katie, the floor is all yours.
Hello, everyone. Yes, I'm Katie Scanlon. I'm an alum of Herkimer College, and this has been my whole career. So my first year was in athletics, and then I transitioned to academic advising as a professional advisor. And then for the last 9 years, I've been the director. And through our time here, I redesigned the advisement model. So we're a total intake model. Students start with the Advisement Center. We onboard them. Admissions hands off to us. We onboard them through at least 30 credits earned. And then students have the option to go with a faculty advisor for the remainder of their degree and transitions out. So I'm going to share my screen and introduce you to this program that we're very excited about. As we sat around the table listening about the ASAP programs, ASAP and ACE, it sounded a lot like this program that we knew. Let's see, I'm not gonna be able to focus until I share this. Okay, present. Sorry, guys, I can't see around some of my Can I just go like this? Can you guys see everything?
Yep, just put your cursor down way at the bottom right-hand corner. Okay. There's that little.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, that one.
And that's all recorded for everybody to know that I don't know how to use PowerPoint. Right here. Okay. It's actually presenting on my other screen. Okay. Can you see in presenter mode, or am I still over here?
It's still in the regular mode. It's okay.
Go ahead. I'm just going to go this way, just in the effort of time here. So our Refresh and Restart program it began in the spring. And like I said, it was inspired by sitting around the table learning about ACE and ASAP and how familiar this sounded to a program that we've been trying to get up and running. A lot of brainstorming in the Advisement Center among the professional advisors about what we could do if we weren't already at capacity with advising the rest of the campus. So a lot of brainstorms, a lot of jam boards, a lot of what we could do if we had the funding and if we had more staffing. So of course, I jumped on this as a supplemental piece of the Transformation Fund. So what is the Refresh and Restart program? So the program is designed to create a customized re-onboarding process or experience for students that stopped out from us. They have some college, but no degree. And it's our goal to help students reacquaint themselves. So re-onboard them, reorient them to what's changed about Herkimer since they last attended, and to hopefully identify the barriers that cause them to separate from us and mitigate those barriers and prevent those from rolling out in front of them again. What we're realizing is that we are folding students back into the same exact experience and recycling a lot of returning students. So they would come back, maybe earn a few credits and stop out again because we were putting them back in that same experience. The components of the Refresh and Restart program I'm just gonna over here so I can see my whole screen. So it's the main components, and the first four of these components are a dedicated coordinator of Refresh and Restart, so staffing, a single point of contact from these students from recruitment through completion of their degree. The first four bullets here are receive funding from the grant. So also to develop and implement crash courses. So crash courses with stipends to faculty. We wanted them to be the experts. We did a lot of outreach to them to find out what were the pain points, what were they seeing in the classroom from the student type, what were they struggling with, and when we use that to inform the recruitment of faculty to create these crash courses to encourage readiness and also confidence in their return to Herkimer. Implement an equitable online mental health platform. I will get into how that has been a little bit of a pain point for us in the implementation of the project. An emergency fund to remove the financial barriers that could cause them to step out from us again. And then comprehensive support services, so much like ACE and ASAP, that single point of contact, that referral network, and making sure that we connect students to all the services on campus. So our measurements, I'm sorry, I'm switching on one screen and not the other. Measurements. Okay, so we seek 0.5, and we started small because we knew that our first full term in the program would also be fleshing out all the components. So we started small. So we seek a 0.5 incremental increase for each metric over the baseline data collected in the first year, and then a 1% increase for each year thereafter. And we're hoping to measure persistence. The persistence rate for this student type is 30% in comparison to the campus, which was 70%. But a lot of potential because the students that return to us, on average, 70% of them were earning a 2.0 GPA. So they have high potential. And with these supports in place, we hope to increase that persistence. Credits earned, students returning in fall semesters averaged about 7.5 credits earned, and students that return in spring semesters were 6.9 credits. So we hope to increase that. Although that's a tricky one because when we started to realize the students that we were recruiting back, some of them only needed 1 or 2 classes to complete their degree. And some through our recruitment efforts, we realized that they actually were at completion when we looked at them through the lens of the more student-friendly policies that we've implemented since they stopped out. And then completion rates. Baseline data for this group is currently 6.1. 6.1, sorry about that. Okay, so coordinators first semester with the program has been a busy one. I'm happy to see her each day after what we've kind of put in front of her. First, we hired her. I'm going to name her. Her name is Rosie because I know I'll slip and say her name quickly in future slides. So Rosie comes to us with a year of advisement experience and also a career in social services. So she is just this perfect combination of experiences for the student group. So she started a little bit into the semester, so she didn't get to do the re-recruitment of this group for the spring. So she kind of got this group of students that organically made their way back to us. So we gave her a small load, not all returning students, because we didn't want to break some significant connections that those students made with other advisors in the center, but also wanted her to see what their unique challenges and concerns were. So it kind of worked out great because that gave her a little bit more time to develop the other pieces of the program. So she had a small group that she followed through. And then examine and redesign the re-onboarding process. So this, we realized how our re-onboarding process, the request to return, for readmission was very centered around departmental efficiencies and workflows instead of that student sense of belonging and confidence. So we wanted to make that a little bit more open arms in a way, so that students felt welcome coming back and just asking questions and not feeling like, oh, I can't even fill out a form correctly. How can I come back to college? So we changed that to just be, instead of all these questions and filling out perfectly, for example, if a student said they wanted to come back in the spring, but snow's on the ground in the spring, a lot of times they would hit winter as their returning semester, or the major was not correct. And then we would say, oh, you got to do it all over again. So refill out that form. So students were frustrated before they even got to us. So we changed that to just, I want to return to Herkimer. And that prompted phone calls from my office to ask what their goals are, how quickly are you hoping to do this, and gain some information about why they left us in the first place and what they're hoping to do by returning. She also had met often with faculty to have conversations about the common challenges observed in the classroom. And that informed the next task there, which was recruit faculty to create crash courses to promote readiness and student confidence. So many of the challenges that faculty pointed out to us, of course, math, always math, English, so research paper writing, citations, technology, and then of course we did a big module on study skills and time management because of the juggle, all that they're juggling as an adult learner with work, family, academics, creating having a support system in their family. That came up more often than not, that there wasn't a support system. Maybe the spouse or family wasn't quite as willing to make sacrifices to make sure that their family member was successful in their journey back to college. So that was a paid stipend for faculty to do. We have 4, but we are still working with instructors to create more crash courses, especially as we have these faculty present their courses to the rest of the faculty. So that created, buy-in, but also some wheels got turning about what they could do. So I've already had accounting come up, so maybe the student stopped out mid-sequence. So accounting might be our next crash course to get students back on, refresh their skills before attempting a course farther down in the sequence. Educate the campus and faculty and staff on the program and what it is, what it's not, to create that cross-campus buy-in. So we actually have had 3 professional developments with our faculty and staff. One during startup for spring, one during spring break, and then we did startup for fall, just to educate them of what's going on here. But the most impactful, I think, was the faculty presenting how they've engaged the crash course faculty. That was really impactful for them to see how people are buying in, and we're getting more and more that want to be a part of this. So work with our early alert manager. We use Starfish at Herkimer to complete a tracking mechanism and milestone touch points for this cohort. We actually use a lot of Starfish surveys because our faculty don't necessarily go in between the Starfish surveys to raise tracking items for these students, or for any students. So we do Starfish surveys at week 2, 4. They do midterm grades at week 8. And then we do a week 10 right before the last day to withdraw. And then we actually do a week 13 to, find those students that need that push to get to the finish line of the semester. Another great improvement of Herkimer is we just got our Starfish manager was part-time and remote. So not really understanding the needs of our students and the needs of offices in expanding their reach to all these students. So that person is now a physical person on campus full-time and works by department. And she just sits in on these meetings and just listens from that lens of how can Starfish help. So moving this one, I love moving the formal withdrawal process from student accounts to the coordinator of this program. So we think of this as, dialing it back even further to find out why are they separating from us to begin with. And so it's promoting service excellence, getting that information out to people of why students might leave, but then also to create a database of who are our future potential returning students, keeping them engaged and reaching out to them during their time away from us and and inquiring of when the time is right to come back. So that's been good because we haven't had that baseline data of why they're leaving us. So we actually make it harder to come to Herkimer than it was to leave. So we're trying to change that. And then we had a huge recruitment initiative in the spring and summer. So we actually went back 7 years on our stop out report and vague text, email, all that, but then also a very re-recruit them back with a completion plan. So what we were finding is students want to know how long is it going to take, how much it's going to cost, and what is it going to lead to. So a lot of invisible work of looking at them before we actually contact them to know what we can offer. Is the program that they left when they left us, what is that? Do we still confer that degree? Are there opportunities to reevaluate their transcripts? Are there PLA opportunities? So we really did a lot of, I keep calling it invisible work, and sometimes it worked out and sometimes it didn't. I don't need to spend too much on this because I know you guys all know this. So the unique needs of these returning students, they run the gamut of students who are coming back for a second degree, reinventing their career, student standings. Maybe they didn't get through any of the credits that they initially attempted, so they're essentially starting from scratch. Financial difficulties with timing out of financial aid. We might get somebody all the way to the end to agree, and then the financial aid's just not there, so they can't attend. Balancing work, family, academic responsibilities, that support system that we talked about, those very complex academic histories. It could be a student standing. It could be that they change their majors multiple times and we're trying to find the best fit for them so that the majority of credits can count. Classes in the programs that they left no longer exist. There's all kinds of things. And Herkimer Small, I always tell students, is part of our charm. Every class is not offered every semester. There's not a ton of different offerings between campus and online. It really has to be, it has to line up nicely. So we're doing part of that invisible work is making sure that if we're going to recruit them back, we have to be able to accommodate them. We don't want to, insult them right away to say, oh, sorry, we can't accommodate you, try somewhere else or come back in a different semester. So we wanted to make sure that we can really live up to the offer once we get them on the line. Access to courses and academic services. So we get a lot of technology hesitant students in this group, but also our online programs are in many cases the best way for them to be able to do this while they're juggling everything else. So there's a lot of rehab there to kind of get them confident in those online classes. Mental health concerns related to the stress of college, of returning to college, among many other things. And then also that confidence and hesitation about their abilities to complete college work after their time away. This next one I kind of already talked about. So some of that invisible work, a closer look at these students. So we've kind of become the Office of Academic Amnesty and Academic Forgiveness because these students have these academic histories. Also prior learning assessment. So this is kind of the road into that conversation is what have you been doing since you left us? So a lot of times we're the ones initiating the prior learning assessment process and getting them to the right deans, to the right instructors with the evaluation instruments and everything. And then reviewing these records through the lens of today's policies and procedures. So, for example, we reduced our residency requirement. So they might not have been close to completion when they left us, but if we can reevaluate their transcripts, now with the new residency requirement, more credits might come in, and then we can tell them that they're either completed or they're closer to completion as a result. Challenges and discoveries. So we do not pretend to be the expert on this. We've learned so much. There's been definitely some challenges here. So difficulties in identifying the cohort, returning student type. So our returning student type, I don't know if this is the same across campuses, but our returning student type is kind of a catch-all student type. I don't know if that's an appropriate thing to say, but we have students who complete a degree and they come back, they're a returning student. Students who withdraw, they're a returning student. Students that, dematriculated for whatever reason, then decide to come back are a returning student. So some students that, are just coming back, get a couple more prerequisites to go to their next college. They don't intend to complete. So it was a challenge to, do we want them in the cohort, or do we want a student who's already has a degree but is coming back to totally reinvent, but maybe it's still been 10 years since they did that. Their challenges can be very similar. So we struggle to say, yes, these people are in, no, these people are not. even though the returning student type said that we have this big group, but it really did turn out to be an umbrella of different targeted groups within. So we decided to go big and have cohorts within the cohorts. Just different targeted messages for the different students within the group. We have not gotten the mental health platform off the ground. It is a non-negotiable. We have to get that across the finish line, but because of short staffing in our information technology department and their priorities, we have not gotten that going yet, which is, upsetting because the majority of our students are online students. About 90% of this cohort are studying through our digital learning environment. So there is an inequity there because our campus learners have access to counseling services. So if anybody has any suggestions on how to push that through, I've used the word non-negotiable and unacceptable many times. And then I talked about the significant invisible work that's involved in recruiting these students back. We did have from that recruitment initiative we did, it was about 1,000 students on the list. We worked with institutional research to narrow us down to the most viable students. There was about 1,000 students. We re-engaged over 300 students and we enrolled 120. We lost 9 students right before the start of the semester. So we took that pretty hard, but they are such a fragile group. It could be that their books didn't come in time. It could be just that, I decided it's not the right time. We're still talking to them to keep them engaged, and maybe the spring is a better time. But there's a lot of invisible work that could just disappear. You might have invested, hours upon hours on a student, and then they decide that it's not the right time for them. But we still believe that the things that we did, the office efficiencies that we kind of deprioritized in favor of the student sense of belonging and comfort, was still valuable work. And we hope that it sticks with that student through word of mouth, or they do eventually make their way back to us. And then we need some clear guidelines regarding the emergency fund to ensure sustainability, but also access. So purposeful impact. I think that we were worried about the amount of money that it was and how many students we were going to bring back, if it was going to be too low of an amount if we divided up across the whole population. But as a result, we've only gotten one request for emergency funds. So we want it to have a bigger impact than that. We didn't want to advertise it out there for faculty to give mixed messages to students who might not be a part of this cohort. So we have to find a better way to make sure that that's reaching all the students that might need it. So we're worried that maybe they're not disclosing that they could benefit from something like that. So we have to find out a better way to make sure that that's meeting the students' needs. Okay, and then looking ahead. So we plan to, our coordinator has a ton of ideas about student engagement with the students, majority of them learning in an asynchronous environment. It is a challenge to, get them together, but doesn't mean that it's off the table. We're still looking into that. Continued focus on addressing the mental health. That is a non-negotiable. As I said, we need to get that across the finish line. And to that point, we also want to work with, I have that further down in my bullets, work with other departments and leadership to ensure that the experience of our campus learners is mirrored to students learning within all of our learning modalities and our student types. Develop the sustainable, impactful, and accessible emergency fund. Refine our recruitment. So try to find those efficiencies. Are there some people around campus that are not at capacity during the summer that could help us with, at least getting down to the most viable students? And then continued planning with the faculty for the development of additional crash courses, and then continuing to explore how early alert can work for this program. And that's all I got. Questions and definitely suggestions are welcome. I have my email there. I'm happy to share anything that we have. I'm happy to walk anybody through those crash courses if they want to see it. It's an open enrollment class that we automatically enroll the students in. So I'm happy to share all that we got.
Thank you so much, Katie.
Very welcome.
It's a really great program, really great presentation. I will ask the folks, if you have questions, just pop them in the chat, or you can write them down and we'll save time at the end. But thank you, Katie. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So I am pleased to introduce our next presenters. They're from SUNY Oneonta, and they'll be talking to us about the SUNY Oneonta Heritage Language Institute, which offers additional support to ELL and international students. So pleased to welcome our next presenters from SUNY Oneonta. If you'll just briefly introduce yourselves and then take it away. Thanks so much.
Sure. Hi, thank you so much for having us. My name is Pathy, Leiva. I'm the Director of Access and Opportunity Programs here at SUNY Oneonta.
And I'm Julie Condon, and I'm the Assistant Director of SOLI, the SUNY Oneonta Heritage Language Institute.
For some reason, the slides weren't working on our end, so they're going to be shown. So just so you know. So just to get us started, we can go to the next page. So SOLI, obviously, it was designed really for ELL students and our international students. There was a need and there's a gap. And I think a lot of the SUNYs have amazing programs. And some have some similarities, but I wanted to look for something as a bilingual, multilingual speaker myself. I wanted to make sure that we had what was needed for students, because even at 45, comprehension is still an issue, and it's just the basics of words. And I think that we're all really bright. It's just a matter of making sure there's a place for students so that when they come to college, we can retain them. So as you can see, what is SOLI really is the idea to provide support for our domestic and international students, degree seeking or otherwise exchange. And we wanted to make sure that we provided a physical space for them. It is a good location here on campus, which is great. And we are always being more positive and making sure that students understand that having a language is, right, it's a very positive experience. We want to diversify our campus, just like every campus does as well. And this was created in a way that there was 3 tiers. I won't get into it because Julie will be doing that, but the 3 tiers are supposed to assist students at different levels. And this really kind of helps us to make sure we provide all the services needed. And then, of course, currently we're recruiting internally because, of course, we're not providing money, we're more providing resources. And there's students here that we want to make sure that they're getting the resources they need. And they've already made these students. We started with our incoming class, but we are solely finding students that can help us. So we'll make sure we promote it to all the incoming classes as well. We'll go to next. And of course, these are the type of students that are multilingual Red Dragons, right? I talk about degree seeking students, international students, very short-term international exchange students, and then of course, our domestic students who are those students who were born in this country, but still, right, speak certain languages at home, but they still have maybe the accent component or the language or the writing component. There's maybe speak multiple languages or even dialects, right? We have like a Burmese population that speaks Karen and Burmese. We have our African population, there's different dialects there too. And of course, our more popular Spanish language, you know. We want to make sure that we're providing this to our faculty and staff for support. And of course, the future, the plan, the long-term goal, because I wrote it in the plan, is that we were going to support our community members. There is definitely a population here that want to learn the language and want somebody to help them. So it's really connecting to them. And we're going to be working with our Excel Center, which is right in town, through our, I forgot our department. Anyway, so our department here, which is continuing education, sorry. Go to next. And so how are we different? I think I talked a little bit about it already. This is non-mandatory. There's participation optional, but we promote it in a way that people want to do it. I've always felt that because we're language speakers, where, you know, it's not just like you're getting some scholarship or you're doing this or you don't want to go to something. You actually want to excel in your language and you want to stay in college. So students that tend to be in this level are going to look for us and are going to want to stay with us. And sometimes, you know, it takes a little tweaking. We want to make sure that they come anyway. So we want to provide opportunities to our domestic ELL students. There's about 16% of just New York City students are ELL students. And if I don't know the whole number for New York City students in high school, but 16% is still a pretty large amount. And that's who we're recruiting. There are specific high schools in New York City. And then we're talking about rural areas. There's lots of rural areas where we see a lot of farming community, migrant farmers. Because I have a migrant farm scholarship, a lot of those people, a lot of their children don't speak, right, most of the language, and they have like 50 to 60% of it, but they're just too shy to do it. So we want to make sure that we're providing these opportunities all over our New York State area to make sure we're supporting our students. And of course, one of the things that people are always concerned is, are these credits that we're offering in our tiers credit bearing, and they are going to not hurt them. If anything's going to help them with what as electives. There are a few majors, I'm going to be upfront, that we have to finagle and probably fix, but we make sure that they still graduate on time. And if anything, we'll work with them. And the idea is also, so the last two here are more like what we are hoping to do, are to make sure that the courses are taking, not only are they your regular courses, but that we're going to focus on some mini courses, on-demand options like tutoring and drop-in and support services to make sure students are supported. Right now, we do have a nice space on what we're doing, but this is adding to what we already do. And then, of course, we want to go beyond the classroom to work with students and faculty to support them in other ways. And we're slowly getting there with the faculty there. We're starting to get to make sure that they know what we can offer them. And it's not something that they normally get, right? We'd be able to go and do sessions where they know, how to culturally connect with the student. How are we going to find out if the student needs the support without, singling them out, things like that. So we are a little different in the sense that this is just something that I don't think it's been done. Definitely there are schools out there that have done them a little different. This is what we're doing here. We could go to the next one. And so here is kind of the idea that we are going to, this is our pilot, right? Everything that we want to do with it is we want to secure a location. There's our Schumacher building is right in the center of the quad where all the students congregate. So it's a very quick, easy to get to our office. We did end up working to make sure we created an attribute here on campus so that we can identify our students as like SUNY students. We track it through Slate, into Banner, and then we now track it on Navigate so that we can have those connections with our students. And so we cater to our first year. This year, we cater to our first year, so some transfer students. But the idea is to cater to all of our students across the board, and that we make sure that everybody receives the options of courses in the tier 1. And you'll hear more about the different tiers. We provide tutoring, one-on-one tutoring. We do work with our Student Learning Center, of course, but the goal is that this is more one-on-one, and it's a more of a bilingual, right, more multilingual tutoring as opposed to your basic tutoring. And then making sure they can drop in anytime into our office. Our domestic students, we're identifying most of them have come from my AOPS, right, my umbrella program, which are our camp students who are migrant or farm working students, our EOP students. We also have Aspire, which is our first generation students. So we have multiple students that come for Summer Academy already. And while we were doing it this summer, Julie was able to assess them and make sure that some of those students who needed the extra help not only got help during the summer because they're taking courses, but when they come in the fall, they're focused on that specifically. And of course, our international students who represent a larger part of our program want to make sure that when they were being assessed and they were across 4 different skills, we're looking at the reading, writing, listening, and speaking. And of course, we do a lot of assessment to make sure that our students we're working with the Global Education Department here to make sure that we're helping their students, right? We have some students from Canada and the UK, they may not need us as much, And then of course, in our Summer Academy, we looked into the comp students, composition courses. That's where the recommendations came from. Did some, interviews. There were some specific needs in the long run for students. Wanted to make sure that there was a need for social cultural consideration as far as like, just basic things like sarcasm. Like that can be hard for someone who only has been here for a few years. I remember when I was 9 years old, it was not easy. Sarcasm can be tough, And so just understanding culturally how America works for a lot of our students who have come to this country only maybe a year or two, So we definitely want to make sure that we are assessing all those things because that's part of our tier on the courses we're offering. And of course, we worked really close with admissions. We are talking about doing a lot more promotional materials, creating lists to do outreach. And of course, our international admissions counselor is working to make sure they get this information. This is a very unique thing. It's a way for them to know that this is existence. This is what we're doing to support our international students. And it's not just a few courses, it's an actual center. And I'm gonna pass it over to Julie now. Go to the next slide, please.
So again, just to introduce myself or reintroduce myself, I'm Julie Condon and I'm the Assistant Director of SUNY. And I'd like to just take a slightly deeper dive into our tier structure. So students are placed into the tiers according to the American Council for the Teaching of Foreign Languages proficiency benchmarks, and that's what our Global Languages Department uses for the students in their courses. So tier 1 is for the students who need the most intervention. And it is mostly coursework. So we have currently we have 4 courses that we offer that teach various aspects of English for academic purposes. So we have a course in academic reading and writing, a course in academic listening and speaking, a course in conversation, and also a course in like intercultural differences in educational systems. And that course also focuses a little bit on like regional history, regional geography, indigenous history, and things like that. At the first level, we also provide tutoring, study spaces, and overall academic assistance. And all of the courses are 3 credits. The next level after that is also currently happening, but also there's ways that we're going to expand this that I'm going to talk about in the next slide. So level 2 is mostly at this point is focused tutoring, so scheduled weekly tutoring, both in English for academic purposes and for tutoring in certain content areas. And then eventually we would like to expand this, and I'll talk about that in the next slide. And then our third level is for the students at the most advanced proficiency level. So they don't require any real sustained assistance. They just need some drop-in intermittent assistance, maybe on an essay or one particular assignment or a presentation, and they can just do drop-in service. So if you could go to the next slide. I'd like to talk a little bit more about our future course ideas. So the first thing that is in the works, and this is happening next summer, is our Summer Bridge program, which we're really excited about. That is a 2-week pilot program that we've tagged onto fall 2025. International students can come up to 30 days prior to the start of the semester. So that's how we figured out the start date. And we're going to be offering a 1-credit course on college communication survival skills. That's in the morning. And then in the afternoon, we'll be doing field trips and workshops. And then in tiers 2 and 3, what we would like to offer in addition to what we have now, which is the focused tutoring, is some 1-credit mini courses in the more granular subskills of English language teaching. So maybe pronunciation, academic vocabulary, STEM vocabulary, and I'll explain the need for that in a moment, and also some advanced grammar. And then one of the metrics that many colleges use to measure the success of a program is how long does it take students to successfully complete Comp 1000? So we've been talking to the registrar to find out if we can revive our co-requisite model for Comp 1000, which will provide additional support for our English language learners. These are also getting into our like Gen Ed core classes. So we have Red Dragon seminars, which are required. And if we could maybe provide courses that offer topics that are maybe of more interest to multilingual learners, perhaps some sociolinguistic topics, we can support them through their Gen Ed core requirements as well. Not to forget our non-academic programming. This is also something that not a lot of programs do. They just offer courses, and we're also trying to support people with some non-academic programming, working with the Office of Equity and Inclusion through some holidays or our Hispanic Heritage Month especially. And then we're also coordinating with our international faculty and staff. Our Office of Global Education has a faculty ambassador, and he actually just emailed me yesterday to ask if we could provide some support for faculty in spring 2025. And then also we'd like to do some professional development for our faculty as well. In my experience, most faculty, when they realize that they have students in their class who are multilingual, they're really eager to know how to support them, and they want to know what the best practices are. So we would love to be able to offer some professional development for our faculty and staff as well. So going forward, we can change slides. I'd like to talk about the surprises. So tutoring, it may be a much more popular option than our courses. So Gen Z students, they are the on-demand algorithm tailored generation. So perhaps it shouldn't have been a surprise that they are more interested in having a more tailored experience through tutoring than taking a more general skills ESL class. So that's been one surprise, and we'll be trying to build out our tutoring program a little bit more. But another big surprise was that I thought that we were going to be working most closely with the English department. As I mentioned, the completion rate for Comp 1000 is a metric that many schools use. So I thought that we would be collaborating most with English, but it's actually been our bio and chem departments who were the first to reach out. And we have been working with them to develop glossaries and some academic vocabulary lists that people can study. We're looking into getting Spanish versions of textbooks. So they've been really supportive and really excited to collaborate with us, which is great. And if anyone wants to hear about why I think that the English department doesn't need us as much, I'm happy to answer those questions in Q&A. It's a little, I have my theories, but I don't really know what it is. And then the next slide, I'd like to talk about some challenges in addition to our surprises. So the first big challenge is really, how do we identify the domestic multilinguals who need SOLI? So international students need to provide proof of English proficiency when they apply, but our multilingual students don't do that. They are admitted students who have met the requirements for admission. Sometimes our domestic multilingual students also don't even identify as being English language learners. It's a label that they don't associate with them. They feel that they are American and they speak English, and they don't feel like they have any need for developmental language, even though they might. So really, how to identify these students and encourage them to come to our program has been a priority. And we've been doing that through spreading the word. I mean, we've had tables at like our big campus-wide events like Club Expo, Red Day. We just had our open house with admissions last weekend, and we met a lot of people from Mohawk Valley Community College, Schenectady Community College. We made some connections there. We also really work closely with academic advising. We've had at least two students who were referred to us this semester through advising. We're spreading the word. We did a lot of outreach, a big push over the summer at the AOP Summer Academy. So with our EOP programs, CAMP is the College Assistance Migrant Program that Pathy mentioned earlier. And the Aspire program is for our first generation students. Another way that I think that we can really spread the word is by working with parents and families at Orientation Family Weekend, and we've put some articles on the family portal. I think that first phone call that is, I don't understand the language at college. I thought I spoke English, but I'm struggling. That doesn't happen in the office hours of the professor that you are struggling in their class. That's a phone call you make to your family. So making sure that parents and families also are aware of our programs. And then, as I mentioned, doing some professional development for faculty, and especially visiting classrooms and doing presentations for departments. Chem and Bio, they are first on the list. So if I could go to the next slide with the next challenge, has been really, where do we fit into the existing structures? SUNY Oneonta is a really wonderful campus, and we have a lot of great professionals here who do really amazing work in a lot of different fields. And so we don't want to eradicate or duplicate any of the things that we already have that work really, really well. So the key here is to collaborate, and then with an emphasis and a focus on expansion. So the Student Learning Center does tutoring and assessment for students. So working with them to expand the tutoring offerings and also the training of the tutors. And then to develop maybe more creative and more robust assessments that measure different things besides just language proficiency in the 4 skills. We definitely work closely with academic advising and faculty to just make people aware of the program and what courses we offer, especially and how people can come for an assessment and be placed into a course. Global Education is another big partner with us. The regulations around the I-20 are complicated. So we'd love to maybe provide some more education to other faculty members about that, and then especially expand the social programming for international students on our campus. Clearly, we're working with Access and Opportunity Programs. Pathy is the director, and she's here with me today. World Languages is the departmental home for our courses. And then when admissions does their events, we also are doing presentations, so like when school counselors or high schools visit. And then there's one more challenge, which is more of a future challenge. And this is finding TESOL professionals in a rural area. I mean, I've talked a lot about how we want to expand some of the things that we have in place on our campus, but we're not a big city that tends to attract a lot of TESOL professionals. So we really need to look to what we already have here in our region. We have a really wonderful bilingual education graduate program. We can work with not just the faculty, but also those graduate students to help design the new assessments that we'd like to roll out at some point, and then offer some experiential learning opportunities and internships, both for the graduate students and also for our undergraduates. As Pathy mentioned before, there are a lot of people in this area who are in K-12 schools who are the children of farm workers, migrant farm workers, and there are a lot more English language learners in our K-12 schools in this region. So giving our undergraduate students an opportunity to work with some people who speak other languages is also something that's really going to help us going forward. There's definitely some potential here. So I think we're
Well,
getting
yeah.
to the end.
This is,
Yeah.
so I think the goal has always been is, you know, where's the need? How can we fill it? How can we help people? This has been going on for years since I'm somebody who I'm using my own experiences, right? I always want to make sure that comprehension, conversation, all these things were not obstacles, but that we can celebrate it. And Dr. Day, our president, said it great. The best was just let's promote positively about what we do and what we're bringing to the campus. We are a very diverse campus and we want to continue to grow. So I think this program hopefully will do well and will continue. And I think we've seen a lot of positive thoughts from it. So anyway, I'll end here. Thank you, Julie, and
Thanks,
thank
Pathy.
everybody
Thanks,
for listening.
Well, thank you both so much for your presentation. I really appreciate it, and I see that we're doing very good on time. So I see we have Katie back on the screen and the SUNY Oneonta folks. So Katie's been fielding a few questions in the chat, but now it's kind of an open mic opportunity. So for anyone who has questions for either of our presenters, please feel free to raise your hand and ask away. I know this is right during lunchtime, so many people are probably eating and listening, so I get it. Well, I just want to say thank you all so much for taking the time on this very busy time of the semester to come listen to two of our presenters. Thank you both so much to Herkimer and to SUNY Oneonta for sharing more about some of the transformational initiatives that you have going on at your campus. And do want to announce that we have one more session for the fall semester. On December 5th, we'll be hearing from the University at Albany about their Great Danes 101 class, which is a free semester-long course offered to parents of first-time students. So a really interesting idea. So I'm really excited to listen to them to close out the fall semester. And then, of course, we're going to have a spring 2025 series as well. And we're hopeful that we're going to be able to engage with Complete College America to really continue the conversation that we started at the convening just last week here at SUNY System in Albany. So there will be an evaluation of today's session. So just take a few moments to respond to that so we can continue to build programming that's responsive to what you're looking for. And once again, huge thank you to our presenters and thank you everyone for attending and have a great rest of your day.